The president received multiple briefings on military options for Iran, including regime change operations. That's the overnight headline. But here's what most traders will miss. The signals are telling a completely different story than the fear would suggest. Here's what you need to know for Thursday. Regime, risk on, growth neutral, inflation bullish. Allocation, stocks plus gold, bullish stocks, bullish gold, flat Bitcoin. Sectors, 8 of 11 max long. Leadership shifting to value and defense. And the dollar, bearish, which is a tailwind for risk. U.S.-Iran. Trump was briefed on military options including regime change operations and limited nuclear strikes, both potentially weeks-long operations. Lavrov warned of serious consequences. Ukraine. European intel chiefs are pessimistic about a 2026 deal despite Trump's optimism. BOJ. Japan's central bank may hike rates as soon as March or April. Superlong bond yields fell even after weak auction demand. That's investor confidence, not panic. In China, the IMF is warning that consumption must drive growth, not external demand. Today's 60-second class. Why does a risk-on regime matter when headlines sound scary? Markets move on the interaction between growth and inflation expectations, not headlines alone. Right now, growth is neutral and inflation is bullish. That's the current regime. Rule number 1. Risk-on regimes favor equities until growth deteriorates. Headlines create volatility. Regime determines direction. Economic data. CPI at 2.39% year-over-year, core at 2.51%, the lowest this cycle. Cooling but sticky. The Fed has room to be patient. Equity impact. Bullish, less pressure on valuations. Initial claims at 227,000. Unemployment at 4.3%. Softening but not breaking. The soft landing continues. Equity impact. Bullish, Goldilocks data. Real GDP at 3.53%, with productivity contributing about 2%. Growing above trend. Rule number 2. Above trend growth plus cooling inflation equals the risk-on sweet spot. Market conditions. VIX term structure is in contango. 3-month VIX is 1.42 points above spot. Traders expect volatility later, not now. That's bullish. No imminent danger for risk assets. The dollar index at 97.58, trending lower. Confirms the bearish dollar signal, bullish for risk. And breadth. Equal weight S&P flat, while cap weight is down 0.8% over 5 days. Rally isn't just mega cap tech. That's healthy. Quant model. Regime, risk on. Growth neutral, inflation bullish. Positioning, heavy leverage tech plus a cash buffer. No bonds, no Bitcoin, no gold in the leverage strategy. Performance, the model is down 6.8% year-to-date versus the S&P up 0.7%. Leverage tech has been the pain trade in 2026. But the regime hasn't changed, discipline over emotion. Correlation watch. Small caps at negative 0.69 and financials at negative 0.71, showing the highest negative 2-week correlation to VIX. That's a crowded trade that could reverse fast. Rule number 3. Watch small caps and financials for regime change signals. When they start correlating with VIX instead of against it, that's your warning. Sector signals. 8 sectors at max long. Materials, energy, industrials, consumer staples, real estate, utilities, healthcare, and the S&P 500. Half position on 4, communications, financials, technology, and consumer discretionary. Notice what's at half, the growth sectors. The market wants defense and value, not growth. Rule number 4, when growth sectors lag, rotate to value and defense. Global picture. Almost everything outside the US is signaling max long. Europe, Japan, Brazil, and emerging markets. China and India at half position. Directional signals. Gold is max long. Miners and silver also max long. International currencies, Australian dollar, British pound, Canadian dollar, and euro, all long versus the dollar. The dollar itself, short max position. That's a tailwind for commodities and international. And crypto, Bitcoin and Ethereum signaling no position. Momentum has flipped negative. Rule number 5. When gold and international outperform while crypto lags, dollar weakness accelerates. Big picture. The strategist allocation, bullish stocks, bullish gold, flat Bitcoin. Beta-adjusted equity delta, over 70%, positioned for upside with a gold hedge. Despite the scary headlines, Iran, Ukraine, the BOJ, the regime remains risk-on. Growth neutral, inflation bullish. The signals aren't changing even when the news is noisy. Today's 5 rules. 1. Risk-on regimes favor equities until growth deteriorates. 2. Above-trend growth plus cooling inflation equals the risk-on sweet spot. 3. Watch small caps and financials for regime change signals. 4. When growth sectors lag, rotate to value and defense. 5. When gold and international outperform, dollar weakness accelerates. Trade the regime, not the headlines. See you tomorrow.
Hi, good morning. All right, so we will start our wargaming today. Right, we know that we are below previous month 50%, stuck in NFP Friday's range. Right, we know that the previous day high has a 73% probability based off of what yesterday and the day before did. There's a 70% probability of taking out previous day high, and going into the 30th to the 50th% reverse box, which is at the above of NFP Friday at 25,214 to 25,252. That's the highest probable reversal area for the day. We know that if we lose yesterday's opening price, right, then probabilities will flip down to the low with a 67% probability, right? And then I don't have the current 30th and 70th% reversal zones for that. So I'll get that if that time comes, right? As of right now, we're above Tuesday and we're above Sunday. So we anticipate that this low of the week is locked in, and we're targeting for the rest of the week, we're targeting levels at 25,374. So 25,374 is the target for the weekly high, right? And we're locking in the low of the week, right? Going into intraday, we know that we had contradicting overnight. So they bought up Tokyo and Asia markets. They sold off London, right? This green line represents the previous day open that we're paying attention to, and it looks like we're responding. We went short, so let's go over to the daily profile right now and start doing our wargaming. All right, let's start with the daily profile. We know we went long, true, broken out of Asia. Right, and short true out of London, right? We went short, and so just right out the gate, we know that there's a 72% probability New York 1 will be false. There is a 27 that we go true, right? So let's start defining what that looks like. Starting off with the false. Oh, wrong one. Starting off with the false, we can see that there's 2 dominant high day, lower days, 8:30 to 8:45. Or 9:30 to 9:45, right? We can see that the dominant high day is after 1400. So end of day, high day, possible lower days already in right now, right here, if it doesn't come in at 9:30 to 9:45 for the false, right? We know for our lower day distribution, it's going to be from 0.3 to, we'll say 0.8, right? Currently, we went to 0.59, right? So that's where the mode sits. So let's do our lower day for a short false. We know it's 0. Oh, well, it's negative 0.3 to negative 0.9. And we know it's from 0830 to 1030. Right now, for our high of the day, we've identified that would come 1400 to 1600, and then let's go get our target for that. Right, it's going to be from 0.2 to 0.7 off of Globex high, right? So we're going to go 0.2 to 0.7, and we already have the time. So looking at, we see that we made a low day exactly in the low of the day zone. So we just need to make this false for that to confirm, and that puts us near previous day high right in this area, right? Now, because candle science has us going a little bit higher, candle science has us going to 216. 216 would be like right up here. So off of Globex open, right, to 216, right, that would be 1%. Coming over here, we can see that there is data to support that candle signs. Good morning, Ben. Right? So that is the exact anomaly zone, right? So we could go that high, right? So we can't dismiss that, right? We know that all these probabilities to the upside, P12 mid is floating and open, settlement, all that stuff. Let's go look at it for a false. We know before we go over there, London has an 81% probability, and that typically gets hit between 10:15 and 11:30, right? So we're going to draw, this is a zone, right? Then we are going to draw, this is a zone right here that we're targeting, right? And that's if we go false. If we can't make it back above this P12 mid, we know that the short true's in, and that we more than likely won't even be able to breach New York highs, right? We see that London highs, which has a 77% probability, is synced in with P12 highs, right? So the biggest thing is, are we making the low of the day at 8:30 or 9:30, right? Within this area, if we breach this green line, we know the probability shift to previous day low, and then the probability of us touching this previous day high drops dramatically, right? So let's go look at these zone levels. We know that London OU has a high probability between 10:15 and 11:30 of getting hit. We know that on Thursdays, right, in this scenario, there's a high probability of gap fill for the false. And even for the true, it goes to 50%, right? So it drops 30%. So like I said, it's pretty obvious that number one, we need to make this thing false. Number two, we need to get above P12 mid. And then we've got actual momentum and follow through to the upside. If we can't do those two actions, then we know that we're in short true territory, right? If we breach this previous day open and this lower day zone for the short false, right, we know that short true is more likely to come and play, which is the 27% probability, right? So now, right, let's do our distros. And we know that Globex Open and Midnight both have high probability of hit. Typically get hit between 8:30 and 8:45, if not 9:30 to 9:45. And if we can't hit it by 9:45, we do have data going out to 10:15, but it's pretty much dropping off, right? Let's put our price cloud of what we expect. So something like this, right, until 11:30. And then New York 2 will confirm if we are going to continue on to the upside, right? So that's what we're looking for. Let's do our New York 1 distro, right? We cannot get above previous day mid, right, during pre-market. So we're really looking for previous day mid and P12 mid to get taken, or we're not expecting anything to the upside. We know that New York 1 right here, right now, is over the last quarter did 1.30%. And so that just by 11:30, we typically on a Thursday put distribution that could bring us close to previous day high. And then New York 2 would be 0.95, right? Which could push us into that 216, right? High of the day for candle science area. So something like this, right? But that's only because we're this far low, like we have to be aware of the short true scenario, right? Because that's definitely a thing, right? But right now, like the highest probability, right? 216 to 250. Would probably be more like this, putting us in that upper half and putting us in that candle science for the higher day, right? Something like this. And then even higher because 216, the 30th percentile zone is right here, right? So even higher than this. So That's what we're looking for the afternoon session. We got to see New York 1 either do a short false, meaning the 1300-hour reverses, or we need to just do a long true in New York 2 to continue to this higher day into day scenario, right? So that's what we're looking for. So I guess my line in the sand right now is, can we go on and continue to turn this false, then get above previous day mid? So do some price action like this. This is the highest probable movement, right? Do something like this. And then make it up to the previous day high and the reversal zone. So this is the highest probable scenario, right? If we reject previous day mid P12, we can't get up there, especially by 9:30, then we're going for the short true, previous day low, all that good stuff. All right, so hopefully that helped. That's what I'm seeing. I'll be looking for extended cash flow longs. I'll be looking to increase position size on longs. I'll be shooting for cash flow shorts and reduce position size on shorts if we do go true today. All right, so that's my war game analysis. Hopefully this was helpful. Type in the chat if like the video in the beginning and then the war games are helping you out, right? Like if you are getting value from this, type in the chat, please. And I'll wait. Okay, good. Good. All right. So if we don't do the false right now, then I'll be looking for the 4-step reversal going into 9:30 to 10 o'clock. If we do go false right now, I won't be looking for a 4-step reversal. Should be pretty cut and dry day, pretty easy trading day right now. All right, for the short true, we do have this high day locked in, right? That's why it's so important to identify the day. So if we go to the true and we look at the high of the day, low of the day. Yep. So that high of the day would be locked in, right? So 315 to 330 went there from a time and price standpoint, and then we'd be expecting low of the day towards the end of the day, around the 1 to 1.3. All right, good stuff. All right, thank you for the comments, and I'll see you guys later.